Happy Wednesday. All right, good morning, good morning, good morning, Inner Circle Collective. We're live and we're talking about debt management. Of course, for the month of January 2026, we have been talking about debt management. Of course, last week we talked about debt management and we were going to talk about, your debt, the big picture. Now, this week we're going to continue the conversation, and this week I'm going to give you some tools to use. So, let's get into it. Happy Wednesday again. If y'all don't know who I am, I'm LaShawnee Michael Esquire. I'm your legacy builder coach for the Inner Circle Collective. Remember, the Inner Circle Collective is here to help you grow, reflect, evolve, and we are going to grow together in the community. We're going to talk about 5 pillars. We're going to talk about finances, career, spirituality, relationships, and wellness. And y'all know I'm your financial coach. So let's get into debt management and tools. Of course, this week we also have continuing the Shopping Freeze Challenge. The Shopping Freeze Challenge this week, y'all, is review your subscriptions. I know y'all got Prime, y'all got Netflix, y'all got all the things, and y'all have some sneaky subscriptions that are sitting that you are not using or have not used. I think I told you all last week that for years I was on Weight Watchers. I did Weight Watchers when it was the app, and I was paying $19.99 for Weight Watchers. So I took advantage of Weight Watchers in 2011. I lost 50 pounds in like 6 months. Doing great, was exercising 4 days a week, all the things. Then I wound up getting on Weight Watchers and wound up getting off of it, gained the weight back, and all the things. So when I gained the weight back, I'm sitting here, I was like, okay, well, I'm gaining the weight back, I'm not doing anything, all the things, and next thing you know, I am out here and still paying this $19.99. Well, the crazy thing, y'all, is I paid the $19.99 for years and years and years. So much so, I was paying the $19.99 and wound up canceling it in 2022. Yes, ma'am. 2022. And so $19.99, I think over the years, I wound up spending $2,600 on something that I was not using. So I say all that to say, do not let these subscriptions get away from you, and make sure that you are getting these subscriptions and you are looking at them every year and reviewing them. So that leads into what we're talking about this week in regards to tools to deal with debt management. Of course, the first two, y'all, the one that no one wants to get into, y'all got a budget. I know you got the budget. I know you don't want a budget, but you got to budget. And so you have to sit down, you have to make sure that you are out here and you are budgeting. And, oh, I don't want to budget and da-da-da-da-da. You got to budget. You got to budget. So budgeting is the first thing I would tell you all that you have to do. You have to budget. If you do not budget, it is going to put you in a place where you are going to continue to be in debt. You have to look at your budget line by line, month by month, and make sure that you are looking at what you are spending. So let me say that again. You got to write down your household expenses, your basic necessities, your gas, your food, groceries, utilities, etc., and your debt. And you got to write it down. You got to see how much money you're bringing in. So you need to know what is your net income. You need to know everything and write down everything you're spending, and then create a budget that you have something in place that is going to work for you. So we continue to talk about that, and you need to create a budget. This week we've also been talking about, well, what tools. So there's a couple of rules out here, and the main one, the big one that everybody knows, is the 50-20-30 rule. 50% on your basic necessities, housing, transportation, food, utilities, etc. 20% on savings and investing and paying down debt, and then 30% on discretionary spending. So that means you're going out, your entertainment, etc. 50-20-30 rule. 50% of your income has to be allotted for budgeting, for your housing, your lodging, your basic necessities, 20% in investments and savings, and then 30% of discretionary spending. Okay, so, and I say this because if you're looking for a home, that is usually where they start. What is your net income from all the things? If you have multiple businesses, if you're getting alimony, you're getting child support, you have a payout for some kind of reason, you was injured in some kind of way, you're getting a monthly stipend, Social Security, whatever, okay, assistance, whatever you're getting, you're going to take the total of that income and then you're going to parse it in 50, 20, 30, okay? But you got to start with your budget and know how much you're spending for your basic necessities to see. And I say that because when you're looking to buy a home and they're looking at your debt to credit ratio and they're using that calculator, the first thing they say is, well, you only want to be spending 30% on your mortgage, okay? So if you're spending more than 30% of your mortgage, it is eating up your income. Like, you know, I have people that tell me, you know, I spend about 60% on just paying of my check on my housing. Well, that leaves 40% for everything else. And so everything else is food, utilities, your cell phone, your car maintenance, gas, etc. So you don't have any money for savings. You don't have any money for discretionary spending, even though I tell you all, people find a way for discretionary spending when they want to do something, go somewhere. So the way to create a space that you know how much you have for the fun things, you have to create a budget. And I would suggest that you use the 50-20-30 rule to kind of help you figure out how you should be parsing your money when you get it. I have an old saying is that, you know, I pay God, I pay myself, and then I pay my bills. You know, so I tithe, I save, and then I pay my bills. And my saving is in automation. That is another tip that we talked about. Get into automation. Not only automating your bills, but automating your saving. So I tell people all the time, when I get paid, there's money that goes to my 401k. It goes to my multiple bank accounts. I don't even see the money. Okay? They take it before I get the check hit to my account. So make sure that you are automating your bills and automating your savings. And I emphasize more on savings because you need to be building an emergency fund. And we'll talk about that later in the month, but you need to be building the emergency fund. And particularly when we talk about savings in February, you need to be building an emergency fund because something in your home will break, your car will break, all the things. And you have to ask, is this going to send you into a place that you're going to be in financial ruins if something emergent happens? So 50-20-30 rule, let's create a budget and automate your bills as much as you can and you're comfortable with, and automate your savings. We also talked about negotiating your bills. So my sister and I this year, as I do every year, I call my car insurance company, my home insurance company, any kind of utilities that I'm on some type of budget billing. I call them every year to see if I can renegotiate what I am paying, because every dollar counts and helps. If you have good credit, if you're paying your bills on time, a lot of times people are willing to work with you and to ask questions. Car insurance. This year, well, I should say last year, 2025, my dad was paying this exorbitant amount for car insurance. I noticed out of his bank account how much he was paying. My sister pays his bills. I was inquiring with my sister. I was like, hey, Dad is paying this high amount for this insurance. Do you know why? Of course, she was like, oh, I just thought he was paying double on the insurance bill. Well, as you all know, my dad is 83 years old. He has multiple cars. He doesn't have any car payments anymore. And my dad barely drives. Not that he can't drive, but he's retired. And he does everything around his home. He lawns, he farms, he does everything else. So he only goes off of his street probably 2 to 3 times a week tops. And that's including church. So I say all that to say he's not even driving that much, that we know he didn't get a speeding ticket, he hadn't been in an accident, all the things. And based on his driving history, his credit, etc., why is he paying this exorbitant amount? Well, of course, my dad and I called the insurance company, and the insurance company told us, well, the rates went up in the state he lives in, and that's the reason why he's paying. So, of course, my sister and I then, and my dad, called another insurance company that had some of his other vehicles, and we lumped them on to that one. And so I say all that to say that the reason that that's important is because you want to always make sure that you are calling companies and asking them, can this bill be reduced? Particularly if you are paying on time, your credit is good, you haven't had any accidents, incidents, or anything, particularly with insurances. Home insurance and car insurance especially. Make sure you're calling and negotiating those prices, because, if it goes up nominally, you may not want to waste the time and call. But if it goes up exponentially, like what happened with my dad, he was paying almost double what he was paying before, that deserves a call, and you need to call. Particularly, as I said, if you are a good customer, you need to negotiate that bill. So negotiate your bills. It even negotiate your debt. If you owe a medical bill and they're threatening to report you to collections, call them and say, hey, this is what I can pay per month. Are you willing to take it? 99.999%, they're going to say yes. What can you pay? And we're willing to work with you and give you maybe a timetable on how quickly you need to pay it off at this rate. Now, as I used to tell people all the time, now don't go negotiating money you do not have. If you know you can't spend $100 extra to pay on this bill per month, don't call them and say you're going to send $100. Say you're going to send $50. Always negotiate something that's comfortable, and I would say go a little bit lower if they're willing. So if you're thinking in your mind $75 to negotiate the bill, and you then go call them and they're willing to go 50, go 50. And then if you have the extra $25, then pay it towards it. But never negotiate, always negotiate and start low. So negotiate your bills, negotiate your debt. That was the other thing that we talked about. In addition to that, I want you all to come up with a method to pay your bills. So we're going to get into the big methods that we always talk about. Of course, consolidation of debt. Now, this is an easy one. Consolidation of debt is basically if you have some low interest credit cards, because again, last week I told you all to look at your interest rates, see which ones you are paying the highest interest rate for, and those are the ones that you need to start looking at in regards to cutting down your usage and also getting that debt consolidated off. Maybe you need to transfer the balance to a lower interest or zero interest rate for a period of time. So your credit card companies send these solicitations in the mail, usually with your bills, sometimes separately, every month. If you are in over your head, you have to be realistic and start thinking about that and start dealing with that accordingly. Do not put yourself in a posture that you have no idea what is happening. So call and consider transferring your balances. So consolidation of debt is one thing. Now, I am not an advocate of you doing a debt consolidation company, because usually they come with fees and there's some damage to your credit to some extent. That's not all of them, but that's a lot of them. So those I would say use as a last resort. But if you can transfer balances or get a new credit card with a zero APR, annual percentage rate that is low interest or zero interest, that is the move, and that is the place you want to go. You want to negotiate, consolidate your bills. And now we're going to talk about the snowball method, and then we're going to talk about the avalanche method. Snowball method, very simple. Again, you have now lined up all your bills, particularly your credit card debt and your debt, and you're looking, and you have a credit card that you have $2,000 balance on, and then you have a card that you have $100 of balance on. The snowball method basically says you start with your lowest balance and you pay that off first. So how that will work, obviously every month you have to pay your credit cards. So they recommend that you pay the minimum on your higher balance cards, and then you pay that bill off. Okay? So if you have the $100, instead of you putting whatever is the minimum on that $2,000 bill, put the minimum on that, and then use your extra money to pay off that one bill, so then that bill goes away. So let me explain it again. The snowball method is very simple. Choose the lowest balance that you have on your credit cards and pay that one off first, and then continue on as many credit card debts that you have. So if you have a $2,000 one, you have a $1,000 bill, you have a $500 bill, and you have this $100, you will pay the $100 off first, pay the minimum on the the $1,000 and the $2,000 bill, and then you will pay, then you would move on to the $500 one. Then the avalanche method is completely different. The avalanche method is this: you're going to pay the highest interest bill first. So you're going to look at your APRs. If you got a 32% or 32.99% bill, and then you have another credit card that your interest rate is 11%, you're going to pay the 32.99% balance off first. You're going to tackle that balance first and pay the minimum on any other credit cards you have. And then you continue on that way. That's why I told you all last week to write down your interest rates also, because the interest rates determines how much you're going to have to pay in interest and what is kicking up your minimum payments, okay? So if you got $8,000 and you're paying the 32% interest rate, $100 is not going to cut it. You're probably going to have to pay over $100 is probably the minimum. And of course, you know, I told you all last week, we go above the minimum, okay? We go above the minimum. So this week, what we learned was you want to first look at your subscriptions, because that's a Shop and Freeze challenge this week. Look at your subscriptions. Cancel any unused subscriptions, okay? That is the challenge this week. And you continue that on for the month, and that money that you're pocketing, either save it or use it towards some debt, okay? So just like the treats last week, you're continuing that. So now you should be doing the treats and the subscriptions, because it's going to be a continued cycle. So at the end of the month, you have a substantial amount of money that you can now say, I'm going to put this towards the debt, or I'm going to put this in a savings, okay? So that's the first thing. Look over your subscriptions. I know y'all like your Netflix and Prime and all those things, but if you are not using them, you might want to consider consolidating and cutting them off and using what you like. If Netflix is your favorite, keep Netflix. If Prime is your favorite, keep Prime. But you don't need all 5 of them if you're financially struggling, particularly. But if you know you're not using them, if you're not getting your money's worth, and these subscriptions are going up every day, then get rid of them. Next, we talked about budgeting. I don't care how many ways y'all try to go around it. You got to know how much money is coming in and how much money is coming out. And the best way to do that is to outline all your bills, including your credit card debt. So look at what you are bringing in, and then using the 50-20-30 rule to see how much you need to pay out, so then you can see what you have left to tackle debt. Your household, your basic necessities, those are non-negotiables, okay? So you want to write down your budget and look at it, and then put some goals on that budget also. But write down your budget and do this monthly, so you know how much you're spending on groceries, etc. And monitor your spending, okay? Next, we talked about negotiating your bills. Call these companies and ask them, particularly insurances and things that you're paying premiums on every year. Call them. Can you get a lower rate? Is there, because you're a good customer, is there a way for this to go down? Will it go down after a certain time? Or if you're like me and you have budget billing for your utilities and you pay a certain amount per month, is this any way now that I've done this for a year and you looked at my usage and now can I bring it down? Negotiate your bills and negotiate your debt and determine how much you're going to pay. And remember, do not overcommit to payment. Pay what you can pay and think about the lowest amount first. Start low. Then, of course, we talked about consolidation. If you need to do a balance transfer and consolidate your debt in some way, look at that. Try to find the lowest APR you can, preferably 0%, even if it's for 18 months or 2 years, or ideally if you get one for the life of the loan, you're really doing great. But if it's 18 months or whatever, consider it, transfer the debt. Then we talked about the snowball method, and we talked about the avalanche method. Snowball method is very easy. Lowest bill that you have, particularly credit card debt, pay that one off, and then move on up the chain for each one until you pay off the highest one. Avalanche is different. You're looking at your highest interest rate bill, you're paying that one off first, and then subsequently move it as you continue to pay it off. Remember, you are maintaining the minimums at least on all your other bills. That it does not mean you pour your money into one and don't pay the others. It means making sure that all your bills are taken care of. Okay, so that is what we learned this week in regards to debt management and tools. Friday we'll be here, and we're going to close out the week on the other tools that you can use, and I'm preferably going to deal with credit card scores, credit scores, and what are the components and what they look at for your credit score, and we're going to talk about that on Friday. Let me take a word of preface and tell you all I am going to be late on Friday, so I am not going to be there at 12 p.m. I will be there at 1 p.m. or I may record, but I'm going to more than likely be live at 1 p.m. I have a meeting on Friday and I can't get out of it at 12 p.m. So I will see y'all then. Remember, the Inner Circle Collective is a $39 a month subscription. The link is pinned to this live and pinned to the page. Please join our business community page. You can get all the scoop there. Join the waiting list. But we really want you all to jump on and take advantage of this subscription, $39 a month. You will get all this good content. We will be teaching classes. We're going to be doing book clubs. And you're going to be hearing from all these fantastic 4 coaches in regards to career, finances, relationships, spirituality, and wellness. And I'm telling you all that this is information that you need and going to change and transform your life, because the community that grows together stays together. I'm LaShawn E. Michael, Esquire, your legacy builder coach in the Inner Circle Collective, and I'll see y'all on Friday. Bye for now.